everyone, welcome to another Power Talk with Archana. This is your platform to reach out to the stars. Plan your success with me, Archana, as I lead you, inspire you, and support you to unleash your passion and expertise, coach you and mentor you to achieve your success goals, and help you carve a dream life you've always dreamed for. Power Talk with Archana brings to you world class virtual and in person skill development programs especially curated for you. Welcome to my world as I collaborate with business leaders from across the world. Let's welcome one such business leader today, Mr. Ashok Pamidi. Mr. Ashok is a part of my professional network based in Bengaluru, India. He's been serving as the CEO NASCOM Foundation, a purpose-driven leader who works towards accomplishing organizational goals by aligning, scaling, and sustaining initiatives and programs that translate into accomplishing the final outcomes. A rewarding career of 3 decades in sales, marketing of IT products and services, and non-for-profit organization, Mr. Parmity has initiated disruptive initiatives to strengthen NASCOM Foundation's skill and reskilling goals. Let's welcome Mr. Ashok Pamidi. Hello, sir. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you, Archana. How are you today?
I'm very well, sir. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for gracing my show with your presence. We are really happy and delighted to have you with us.
Same here, Archana. I really look forward to having a conversation with you.
Thank you, sir. So you have been quite a catalyst in bringing together the mission that NASCOM Foundation stands for, social transformation for the nation, to bring that change and to help create that easily available programs for a more inclusive India. So please tell us, what does NASCOM Foundation 2021-22 skilling goals are all talking about?
Well, Archana, just to give you an idea, NASCOM Foundation is the social arm of NASCOM. And the main aim of the NASCOM Foundation is to transform India bit by bit. In this endeavor, our strategy is twofold. At one end, we have the skilling initiative, and the other is the tech for good. In the skilling initiatives, which we commenced a couple of decades ago, we must have impacted close to 17.5 lakh, population of the country. And our entire endeavor is work at the grassroots, school, and college level. And we talk about grassroots level, it's the digital literacy mission, which we have embarked upon about 6 years ago, and we are pursuing it relentlessly. Because in a country like us, if you look at only, forget about digital literacy, if you just look at literacy per se, it's just 77.7% of the population is literate. So we still have there a gap of 23.3%, still not literate. And then when it comes to digital literacy, obviously a lot more to be covered. So the entire endeavor is to look at seeing that at least in every household, there is one, family member who's digitally literate. Again, when we talk about digital literacy, it's not, when we talk about it, it's in a very different concept altogether. When this actually comes to my mind, Alvin Toffler, he has written a book called Future Shock. Sometime back, it was actually about 1980s, I think the book came out. And he talks about a literate is not the one who knows how to read and write, the one who knows how to unlearn and relearn. So in this concept of digital literacy, many of them are actually qualified, educated. But when it comes to computer literacy, it's a long way to go, right? And when we are talking about it, we are talking about ensuring that whether you are literate or illiterate, it doesn't matter for us, as long as you become computer literate. And towards that, our endeavor is to ensure that we reach out to the masses and teach them in the language which they know of. It could be their mother tongue. And that's our endeavor in this initiative. And for that, we have recently launched a portal called digisakshar.org. And right now it's in Hindi and English. Soon it will be other languages will follow, so that anybody can even see the videos and can actually become digital literate. Of course, we'll be using a hybrid model so that we also teach them. At the same time, they are in a position to also learn on their own. Again, in digital literacy, the other aspect which comes in is the gender equality. So we work in schools largely on girls, girls, who can code and girls who can basically innovate. Because in India, it's a very important element for us because in the last 2 decades, from 1990s to now, the numbers have actually come down. At one point in time, we had 30% of our entire population were, also working from the women's point of view. And now, if you look at it, it has come down to 20s.
Wow.
So obviously there is a huge, where women are actually not really joining the labor force. While in the IT industry, it's far different story. We have 35% women in the IT industry. But when it comes to overall, we have lesser number of women, actually joining the workforce, whereas our neighboring countries like Nepal has 80%, or Sri Lanka is even higher, and so on, and even in Bangladesh. So obviously, we can do a lot more in terms of gender equality. So that's the endeavor we are taking. Then in the colleges, the entire approach is on livelihood because we have to ensure that the target audience for us is the economically weaker section, as well as looking at the tier 2, tier 3, 4 type of cities and towns. And we have to ensure that there is meaningful employment created or generated for them, and we make them job ready. That's the entire endeavor in the skilling initiative. Going forward, we have also embarked on basically digitization of the MSME, because after the pandemic we are clearly seeing a large number of micro entrepreneurs are actually struggling to make both ends meet.
Yes.
And we believe digital is one solution. And our entire endeavor is basically looking at digital India and how can India reach the 5 trillion economy. And our endeavor is to transform India.
Wow. Amazing. So I can really see a lot of effort out there, the kind of ecosystem you have developed around yourself to help people get more and more skilled, not only men and the youth, but also the women. I think this is really amazing. And the kind of efforts you have extended towards doing that in all the directions, we can clearly see that happening through the different initiatives NASSCOM foundations have come for. Amazing. So, when we are talking about sustainable development goals and the accomplishment of the same around 2030, how do you see one of your initiatives, My Kartavya, aligning them itself to the UN Sustainable Development Goals?
So, Archana, it's a very interesting question. Typically whenever people talk about My Kartavya or any such volunteering platform, they look at it purely as volunteering per se. But it is much beyond volunteering. It's actually a revolution because, as you mentioned, basically each and every initiatives is actually linked with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So every single volunteer coming in from the corporates who are basically enrolled in My Kartavya is actually working towards reaching the sustainable development goals as set by the government of India towards the UN Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. So the whole thing is completely linked. So the volunteers, are just not, we are not looking at purely from how much time they're spending on volunteering, but look at it from the impact perspective as to what's been the impact on the sustainable development goals. And that's a very important initiative which we have undertaken. Second aspect is, and as I speak, it's the, what do you call it, the week of giving. Mahatma Gandhi started the Jandan, Divas. And we have embarked on, through the My Kartavya platform, a donate campaign, donate for impact. It's a very unique thing because what we are doing is, we have right now started a number of programs, and one of them is Teach for India, wherein we said that we would like to contribute about 10,000 tablets for them, and we are not charging any service fee. The entire amount goes to Teach for India.
Wow.
It's a very unique initiative, and we believe, and as a country, we are known to give, right? We are a very, very philanthropic nation as individuals, as corporates. So this is one such initiative which we have started through the My Kartavya portal, so that people can know how exactly are their contribution going towards. And here in this concept basically, I would like to point out two major aspects. One, is a factor of trust. Because any single individual would always like to donate or to basically give the time to an organization or towards an endeavor which meets an end objective. And that's our endeavor. So that the My Kartavya portal, what we have got is each and every organization can create their own microsite. So that there is a data privacy which is there. It's very important from the trust angle, right? So that's also been incorporated. Second, very important aspect, in a country like us, with a very young population, they're looking at innovation. And
Yeah.
this is in, and I mentioned in the beginning that one is the skilling, the other one is the tech for good. This actually in one way comes for tech for good because the whole aspect, the volunteering aspect, is only through technology. So in the current pandemic, we don't expect people to really come out and join hands with us. No, not required. You could be sitting at home and still contribute towards nation building. And that's our endeavor.
Wow. Wow, I think this is really amazing and very thoughtful, keeping in mind the safety measures, also using the technology the right way and making things available for people, and keeping the pace of volunteering and making it meaningful volunteering and meaningful skilling. I think this is something really important, a wonderful endeavor from your end for sure, sir. An eye opener for many to follow your footsteps. And I also feel it's not about, volunteering. I think we need not have to have an invitation for this. This is our duty as much as yours, our responsibility, and we should come forward ourselves and hold hands with you, with your organization, make it available to make a better nation for all of us to live in. I think this is really important. Wonderful endeavor from your side for sure, sir. So you have been talking a lot about inclusion and diversity, and we also see it in the initiatives that has been taken up by NASCOM Foundation. What does it really, really mean for you, and how it is so important today?
See, I would say, Archana, it's more about inclusion. It's diversity is sort of, ingrained into our culture. Every 200 kilometers you travel, you come across a different language in a different culture in a country like us, right? So it's sort of ingrained in our DNA per se. But when it comes to inclusion, right, we got to do much more because it's a basically what I can call it as a culture of inclusion, right? Or for any enterprises, for any nation, we got to imbibe those practices. And what our endeavor is to ensure that wherever there are gaps which we see, for example, which I said some time back about gender, okay, or it could be disability. Right now, as I speak, right, as per the 2011 census, approximately around 2.22% of the population is having some sort of disability. Now, if you look at it at that time, we didn't have many, areas of disability. There were about, I think, slightly more than half a dozen, about 7 to 8 disabilities, which was then mentioned. But then came the RPD Act, that's called as the Rights of People with Disability Act 2016, which identified 21 different forms of disabilities, which everybody has somewhere or other, somebody will have or will have in the later part of their lives. When I mean later part, because all of us do age, right? And we may have some challenges in terms of, seeing, for example, we lose our sights, or sometimes, people become hard of hearing. So I said but some, usually that happens for quite a lot of the population. Now, what I'm trying to say is that percentage which I mentioned could be much bigger because it's now 21 different. Yeah. And the census was done at 2011. So the population could be much higher than what we think it is. Globally, there are 1 billion people who are basically, having some sort of disability or the other. So when it comes to this particular thing, how exactly are organizations looking at being an equal opportunity employer? How do you ingrain inclusion in all aspects of life? So one is, of course, at the enterprise level, right? Other one, or organization level. Other one is in the way we are actually living. So according to me, a diversity and inclusion angle, when you look at it, is the way you actually are. Okay. So you have to ensure that inclusion built into your DNA itself, the way you talk, the way you speak, The way you conduct with any other individual has to be with a form of, self-respect. Empathy has to be shown by a leader or by any individual. For, that is what is, according to me, a diversity inclusion angle. So while organizations have to do everything, fact remains that a societal gender parity or gender equality has a direct bearing on the corporate gender equality. What you are or how you are brought up has a direct bearing on what you do in office or wherever you are. So, from our endeavor as a foundation is to start teaching this basic, aspects of respecting individuals, on making an individual
Absolutely.
completely inclusive. And when I talk about my kartavya, this is also an aspect which we have as volunteering. How exactly do you teach this basic stuff to small children so that when they grow up, they become responsible citizens of the country? So that's my basic concept of diversity and inclusion. While we do all lots of programs, 70% of our programs are targeted with a gender lens in mind or disability in mind. But the fact remains that when you mention what do you mean by inclusion or diversity and inclusion, for me, that's it. You got to ensure that you embrace inclusion in all aspects of life. The way you walk, the way you talk, and the way you conduct yourself has to be inclusive. As long as you're able to do that, then everything else, doesn't matter for you because you are an inclusive person. So that is my approach of inclusion.
Wow, amazing. So this really touched my heart. I think that is absolutely wonderful, very beautifully stated. It is indeed important for every single person out there to understand this, what inclusion means. It is the very way we conduct ourselves, the people around us. I think that really makes a lot of difference. And it has to come from the grassroots level. Our children, we need to groom them in a way that they grow up to become very inclusive leaders and respect people and their teams, everything around them, so that more and more people are a part of every system. Our ecosystem should be really green in the real sense of the word. This is absolutely right. Amazing, sir. So you have been doing so many things, bringing in so many initiatives, a big ecosystem around you. When the COVID news hit the ground, what was your first ever reaction at that time? What were you thinking? Because it's not only about your team, you operate in a bigger ecosystem, you have created bigger ecosystem around you, helping and making things available for so many communities and society at large. What were you thinking at that time, your very first week?
That was, I think, the March 2nd week, right? And it so happens that I sort of was in UK just before the pandemic hit in. Luckily I was back here in India, and I'd gone there for basically a diversity and inclusion conference in the Institute of Coding UK. So as soon as I landed, I could see that all the in the airport, everybody, they were wearing masks. In UK, they were not actually. So all the security aspects in India was much tighter compared to what it was in UK. So I would say that when I came back, the first thought is, oh my God, in India, are the people reacting so badly compared to UK? Because in UK it was not there, because UK, or everybody was normal as such. There was nothing so big at that time, at least.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing is that, okay, let's see, maybe the reaction for me was, maybe we are getting paranoid about this whole aspects of COVID. Let's see. But then when we started seeing, when it came to Kerala, and then we started reading, and when we started listening to the WHO guidelines and other things, then we realized we are getting into something, pandemic, what they call it. It's going to hit India, and a population of 1.3 billion. It's going to be tough. So believe it or not, Archana, we started the campaign of relief activity just before the lockdown was even announced. We said we got to do something, and our team got together and said that we will do. And in fact, the lockdown was announced, I think, on Sunday. I think the Prime Minister announced it. On Monday, we got in, and we were able to impact 21 lakh lives. Okay, with basically relief material for a ration for about a month for every individual and the families. So the whole aspect was agility. Agility was one of the major aspects. The foundation worked with other NGOs because we are one of the largest foundation which works with about 10,000 NGOs in the country. But in this case of relief,
Yeah.
I have to acknowledge and thank the various government missionary. They were just amazing. The disaster management office which they have in Karnataka, in Telangana, in Bombay, the Bombay Municipal Corporation, the Mumbai Police, the Indian Army was absolutely fantastic. We were able to deliver in Kashmir, and thanks to the Indian Army, we were able to deliver in Kashmir. Chennai, it's the government of Chennai, and there were others who gave it in kind. We had a lot of support from them, and we were just coordinating this entire activity. However, in certain states, our people had to go and coordinate in the field itself. In some other places, especially Kashmir and all, it's the Indian Army which did it. And we had some fantastic logistics, because very important is to ensure when you're talking about relief, you got to ensure that the material reaches in time, good quality stuff reaches in time. And I would like to thank Big Basket, who was one of our suppliers for this, as well as at that time Big Bazaar, the Future Group, now of course
Wow.
taken over another firm. They were absolutely fantastic in giving us material in time every time, and so that is something which helped us. And other NGOs, because the majority of our NGOs were either the what we can FSSAI AI approved vendors. They basically, we work with FSSAI, and they had given us the list of the NGOs whom they had approved, as well as our own set of NGOs we have. And based on that particular thing, we were able to reach the last mile. But again, I would like to thank once again the government missionary, because they were knowing exactly where, because migrant workers were there across various locations. They were in a position to know clearly. So it is just not a migrant workers. We also reached out to, you know, the transgender community, the persons with disability, right? We reached out into the areas like in Bombay. We reached out to the some of these red light areas where many of them couldn't get food for themselves. So the Mumbai and the Indian Army said, "Can you supply there?" We said yes. So yeah, I would say that overall it's a great teamwork, and it's the speed and the agility, excellent logistics supply, which makes it work. And it's just not our NGOs. I've been seeing number of NGOs, some of them not, you wouldn't have heard of them. Number of volunteers. I would say just amazing the way the civil societies along with the government went about working in a very, very relentless manner in ensuring that the daily needs of people who really required those rations and those material, including the various other mask and liquid soaps and other things are reached. I would say that has just been marvelous. As I speak, Archana, we are still at it. We are still at it. While we are not maybe giving relief materials not
I'm
required,
sure.
government has doing some marvelous work in the PDS system which they have, and they're giving it to the needy. But in the hospitals, we do still see that they do require the PPE kits and various other hospital equipments, because
Yeah.
in many states there's still the cases are there. So there are donors who are coming forward, and we are taking those donations and giving it to those hospitals, again with the government, the various municipal corporations. They are able to help us.
Amazing.
Based on that, we are delivering it as I speak. It's still going on, but of course the overall funds seem to be a bit of a challenge currently as I speak. The CSR has the amount which is there, but in spite of irrespective of CSR or not, as I told you, India is a country of giving. So irrespective of whether CSR or not, corporates and individuals are still contributing. And I really would like to thank all of them for this, for their really great effort, because impact from our, just not our foundation, across number of foundations, they have done some remarkable job on that. Thank you very much for this.
Wow. Amazing. So more and more power to this wonderful endeavor from your end and your entire team. I just hope lots of funds start pouring in, more funds start pouring in for the society's good at large. I really, really wish and pray for this. Right, sir, that's lovely. So you spoke about skill development and you also spoke about tech for good. Would you like to throw some more light on tech for good?
Sure, Archana. And it's a very interesting thing, because so far we all talk about, good technology per se. We say, oh yes, that's been a great technology, etc., etc. Now, tech for good is a different concept by means of which we are using the power of technology to impact at scale. Means we could use technology for helping, let's say, persons with disability through means of assistive technology, for example, okay, or accessibility. That's a tech for good. Or you could use in the area of health. For example, when we're talking about COVID relief activity, right? There are a number of activities where the startup ecosystem as well as large enterprises have gone together to understand where are the hotspots. So taking various by using various data points, by using technologies like artificial intelligence or big data, they are able to pinpoint geographies or areas which are highly congested in terms of use the COVID patients. Number one. Number two, even as I speak, in especially in I would say in the initial period, if you saw in Bombay and Delhi and Chennai, they used drones, and drones were used to basically
Yeah.
inform the citizen about social distancing, etc. Right, and that's a tech for good. Drones is a very advanced technology, and that's a tech for good example. Similarly, drones can be used as I speak to supply material or relief material, or it could even be vaccination as and when it comes out to go and reach the remotest part of the country. You can deliver those items. So these are some classic examples of how tech for good can be used. So they can be in the areas of agri-tech, edutech, okay, it can be health tech, right? And of course, as I mentioned, about persons with disability, or it could be even environment. So this is a very, very important area which NASCOM Foundation has embarked upon, and our entire endeavor is to ensure that we are able to impact using technology, or I would say using tech for impact. And for that, of course, we have some a big event by means of which we invite the various participants who are basically aligned to the for the UN sustainability development goals, and by means of which they are using technology to impact at scale. So our entire endeavor is to bring the ecosystem of startups, large enterprises, and government machinery together so that we are able to impact at scale. And that's the Tech for Good initiatives. And what we do is, of course, from our own foundation, we also have come out with philanthropic apps. For example, currently we do realize that domestic violence has increased. So shortly, wherein we have requested help from UN Women, okay, and supported by Vodafone Foundation, we are coming out with an app by means of which we can understand what is domestic violence, how to, and where is it that they can reach to. So this is an app which helps you. Similarly, we had come out with an app for child line support. Of course, child line has been there for years together, but there was no app. So we worked with them and have come out with an app for child line support. So these are all tech for good, because be it an app or using technology at a much higher scale are actually impacting a large number of people. What I would like to say is it's a very, very simple, frugal innovation, but it's impacting at a very large number. And that's why we use technology to
Yeah.
basically create the necessary impact. And we call it as tech for good.
Yeah, I think that's very right said. As we know, technology is making an impact everywhere. But as you have put forth, it is technology for good for people. They're good at large, and the way you have used it, I think this is really commendable. And I hope we get better outcomes, more and more better outcomes using the technology the way NASCOM Foundation has thought about bringing a change in the society. That's really amazing. So tell me one thing, your plate seems to be more than full. We can see lots happening out there. Does it ever take a toll on your health, your mental balance? What is it, that one thing that really keeps you happy to take the day head on?
So, Archana, basically, people talk about, yogas and meditation and all those stuff, right? Well, I mean, it's absolutely great if people know about yoga and know about a little about meditation. But I believe in a different concept. What they say, in our own Bhagavad Gita and other things, like karma yoga, they say, right? I believe that
Yeah.
one can basically get immersed in the work, right? And that itself is meditation. That's honest opinion of mine, and that's what I believe in.
Wow.
And I believe that is very,
Wow.
very important for us, and I follow that religiously. I sincerely believe that work is worship. That's one aspect. Second aspect is what makes me keeps going is that I also read various types of other material and books. So it's just not on, let's say, technology or social sector or anything to do with diversity and inclusion. I read a lot of books on literature, for example, because you see today is not IQ which is important. It's EQ. And EQ is nothing but getting more and more. And you read a Thomas Hardy, for example, or a Jane Austen, you can get better EQ according to me than any other books you can read. So I always believe in English literature. That keeps me going. Though I'm an engineer by background, I keep reading English literature a lot. Number one. Number two is very other important aspect is I mentor a lot, and these mentors are not necessarily, let's say, from our immediate circles. No, not necessary, because I have my mentees coming in from other parts of the world, from Dubai and Malaysia and US also.
Wow.
Of course, largely there because somewhere or other, I've been years together in championing diversity and inclusion. So I do have a lot of women mentees
Wow.
who are working in other parts of the world and other things. So that makes me motivated because you are actually helping an individual, right? And I do know that world over we need that aspect very important because World Economic Forum says it takes 200 years to get into gender parity. Now, I don't believe in that. That's too large a thing, but of course World Economic Forum has said that. So it's our little bit of contribution. So when people reach out to me, right, I go all out and that keeps me motivated because I know I'm helping that individual wherever they are from, right? And I take the time out on Saturdays, Sundays, or late night also because of the time zone difference. I make it a point to have conversations with them to help them in their endeavor to reach their desired goals. So that keeps me motivated all the time, every day, every minute of my life.
Wow, that's really amazing. I think there's a lot out there for all of us to learn from you, the way you always kickstart your day and keep so enthusiastic and remain so enthusiastic and agile. I think it really talks a lot about the kind of person you are. So we really, really wish you lots of good luck, lots of good health. You have all your endeavors that you wish to put forth come to fruition as always. Thanks a lot for coming on board and speaking to my audience. This was indeed a wonderful interview, and I'm sure not one but many takeaways from this for people to learn and imbibe in their system. We wish you all the best, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Archana. I hope that whatever little bit I have basically shared with you, well, will reach out and, as I mentioned, impact us, impact the country, transform the country bit by bit. Thank you very much.
I hope for the same, sir. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. That was Ashok Pamiti for you. Align, scale, sustain initiatives by creating an ecosystem to support and touch lives of millions. E-Akshara, Tech for Good, Inclusion and Diversity, Donate for Good are few of the amazing endeavors that he has brought together to make India more and more inclusive and powerful. I hope this conversation really touched you and inspired you to come forward and support many organizations and foundations like NESCOM Foundation and do your bit to put India on the global map, to make India more Atmanirbhar, to make India more powerful, and to make India more inclusive. I hope you really enjoyed this conversation. I wish all of you the very best and stay tuned for more.